From the Fatheads Eyewear studio in Indianapolis, Indiana, this is The Skinny.
Maybe I need to start in the trash truck business.
Don't rule it out.
But the steering, the spokes on the wheel straight ahead, the steering's broken. Bridges takes the wheel and he goes, whoa, whoa.
He's airborne, and then I'm above him.
Inverted.
All at the same time. Yeah, you're just like, wow, that's a wild picture.
He gets behind the race car and he tells me if I'm good or not, and if I'm good, he'll go, perfect.
I hang up on the guy. I go, who's this? This is Deion Sanders. I go, yeah, nice try. See you later.
Bounce and then this insane roll. That thing sent it.
I hate qualifying. It's the worst. It's literally the worst thing you could ever do.
But I'm smooth and creamy like milk chocolate. Have you ever not saw a Hershey bar that did not look good?
Hi, I'm Tony Stewart.
I'm Mario Andretti.
I'm Johnny Rutherford.
I'm Angel Sampe.
I'm Travis Pastrana.
This is Antron Brown.
Hi, I'm Sarah Fisher, and this is Skinny.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to The Skinny. We're here in the Fatheads Eyewear studio. Indianapolis, Indiana is where it's all going down. That world-famous Indianapolis Motor Speedway just about 10 minutes away. Hello, I'm Ken Stout. Rico taking the day off, probably playing golf or doing something of the sort. Sitting right alongside me is a very accomplished racer, both behind the wheel and also as a team owner as well. That is Miss Sarah Fisher. Great to have her in the studio with us. And as always, Mr. Michael Young running the board.
I was not golfing today.
He's responsible for bringing Miss Sarah Fisher in here. Thank you very much.
Yes. It'll be a good show.
Absolutely. Great to have you with us. Thanks for taking the time. We appreciate it.
This is great.
You live pretty close here yet, so.
Yep, I'm a Indianapolis Southsider. I've been down there for a long time now, so not too far away. Less traffic down there.
Initially out of the Columbus, Ohio area, correct?
That is correct, yeah. A Commercial Point. I think they finally have a stoplight. Now, maybe. We'll see. I don't know.
They name a street or anything after you after all these years?
No, they used to have the little signs below, home of, but that went away a while ago. It's probably after one of my minis.
Pittsburgh's hanging on to Gordon, man. They're not letting that one go.
I wouldn't either. I claim that for life.
Good stuff. Yeah, so great to have you with us here. Just reviewing your career, I mean, you had a really good run, but the diversity in the career was more so than I had realized. You go through it, it's like, oh, wow, she did this, she did that, and she started off here, and she ended up there, and there were some pretty cool moments along the way, and then obviously morphing into a team owner as well, very good at all of those disciplines. So I don't know if you can really compare them, but has one struck you more than the other to look back and say, wow, that was pretty cool. I never envisioned that one.
I mean, like you said, there's so many diversified moments in my IndyCar history. I think I'm like the MacGyver of IndyCar, right? They all were such great memories. And, to have my kids there at the end while we were still, running the team, I think that was probably the most proud. You get to be a mom and all those hormones come flying out, and that's when you really get emotional about it. But just, I think every step of the way I've had fun at all levels. I've had fun at all the different types of involvements, and I've just been very lucky to be able to do that.
It's funny how it goes with moms, and I guess to dads to some degree, but I feel like it's more prevalent with moms. I don't know if you're familiar with Rob and Nikki Klepper, Nikki who works at USAC, and obviously the legacy of her family just buried and racing all along the way, and so much of a storyline there at the Speedway as well. But the second they had their boys, she was adamant, like, there's no way they're racing, and it might be slowly changing actually, but she did not want them to race.
I'm the opposite, man. Once our kids were kind of that kid kart age, here we are with our two little top karts, and going to Whiteland, and now being owners of Whiteland Raceway Park. Good Lord, my husband gets a lot for that, a lot of flack. But, it's been really cool to be a part of that, side of the racing too, and getting back to grassroots and seeing where mechanics come from and drivers and all sorts of people involved in the sport. It's been great to raise and give those kinds of people an opportunity to grow out their wings and find what they really love and go for it. Karting is huge. I mean, it's the most fun that I ever had without having, responsibilities attached to it. Other than wing sprint cars on dirt, I I mean, our family was at a lake this weekend, and Saturday night I'm glued to my laptop, and everybody else is out, playing whatever games and fire and having fun out there, and I'm I'm just sitting there glued to the nationals. But um, karting for me, it's where it begins, and it's where the love of the sport grows. So to see my kids enjoy that and to be a part of that, and to bring Whiteland back to where it is now has been a lot of fun.
Whiteland was a lot of fun. Well, obviously we raced at Newcastle a lot, but Whiteland was a little bit closer, so we'd shoot down there and get some practice time in, and it was a great track to get that practice time in because you don't get much of a break. Like Newcastle's a couple long straightaways, you could breathe a little bit, but Whiteland, man, you're working pretty much the entire time.
Well, you can get a couple breaks now.
Oh, really? Is it bigger?
We added about a half a mile.
Oh, wow.
To it. It's we took over the 35 acres that's north of it.
Okay.
And the Kelsey farm family here in Indiana sold that to us graciously after knowing that it wasn't going to be a housing project. So part of it's cornfield still, but we put in all paved parking. We've built, I think, 5 or 6 rental garages. We have 3 factory teams on site.
Wow.
And that's all my husband. I only argued for the restroom and shower building. That was my one argument. And then my dad, of course, has to have, that into the long straightaway, hard turn brake corner. So we got that. That's Dave's turn 1. But otherwise, my husband has really worked really hard. Andy does a great job of bringing in the people to run the operations side of our club races, and has done a wonderful job of bringing some outside series in, some national level series to raise the game. And on any given club race weekend, we're in the 170s for entries. So it's from the 8 people that were there when we first bought it to now, it's just a huge overturn. I got my driving from my mom and my car brains from my dad, but my school brains from my mom.
The Skinny is brought to you by Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04. And American Coach. Innovation is our life force.
Welcome back to the studio here. This is The Skinny, and we're getting The Skinny on Miss Sarah Fisher here this week. Great to have her in the studio, a local here in the Indianapolis area, very accomplished behind the wheel, and chatting about the karting industry here a bit because that's really where she got her start. More importantly, as I was reading up on you a little bit, obviously living in Ohio at the time, much to my surprise, your parents actually met at a go-kart track, correct? And
Yep.
Was it the same go-kart track that your grandparents owned?
No, well, maybe. I don't, they didn't tell me about that story, but the one story that they did tell me about was the street race in Commercial Point, which it's still ongoing here and there. My mom beat my dad so far ahead that she came across the scales, and my dad came in thinking he won, and his brother George at the time, or maybe it was Charlie said, "Man, you didn't win. That girl down there just kicked your ass." So that was kind of the attention getter, I guess, and here we are today.
Does that story ever pop up every now and again, like maybe around Thanksgiving dinner table or something?
I I always say I got my driving from my mom and my car brains from my dad, but my school brains from my mom for sure.
Yeah, that's great stuff, man. So a family, the entire family around the karting industry there, obviously for a long time, and you got into the karting industry and enjoyed a lot of success. You're a 3-time national champion
Yeah, I don't know. I don't count anymore. Back
at
in the day,
WKA. I mean,
it
Grand
was
National stuff. It was
it
legit
was big back then.
nationwide.
Now they have so many different national level series, and SCUSA and USPKS, and now Stars is really starting to dominate, which is great to see.
Stars was it when my son was coming up. The Stars series
hmm
was the place to be, well as WK Man Cup as well. So that was also, we tried to run a little bit of both of those. So I didn't know Stars was coming, was building back up again.
Stars has been awesome. They really have a great entry, great entry fees. It's not too expensive to run. There's Route 66 and they come to Whiteland. It's not too expensive to run. It really is, affordable in comparison to some of the events like going all the way out to Las Vegas and, entering Super Nationals and all those things. So, our son, Danny, he's 10 years old and starting to run all of those national level series. And, it's quite the budget. But we both Andy and I and even his sister Zoe, we all love it. So if it wasn't Danny driving, we'd have someone else in the seat, I would imagine.
Can you put a roundabout number on it, maybe for the folks at home? It's such a great. I love the karting industry because it's so family oriented. You get the kids out there that first of all they got to get up early in the morning, Saturday, Sunday morning. You got to be at the racetrack by 7 o'clock, and you're unloading carts and you're working on stuff, and you have true deadlines you have to meet, or you get left behind. I mean, so the training, the working around very successful people that have what I call blue collar work ethics is what I love about the industry to this day. Such a great place to raise kids and such family involvement. But they have you just mentioned it before, your son is 10, but they have the kid carts where they're 5 years old inside of these things. But can you put a number on what it would cost to run, say at Whiteland, run a club and a kid cart or maybe a junior can cart?
It depends. I mean, today you have, like I said, we had some factory teams that are located there on site we built a building for them, and they have arrive and drive opportunities. So maybe you don't want to do the whole year. Maybe you want to select a few races. Maybe you pay a couple $100 to rent a cart for the weekend, and you just get your way, into the sport. Or you go out and you buy the very, very best top line of everything, and you spend 25 or 30 grand a year. But the good news is MG makes a wonderful tire that we run exclusively at our track, and those tires, they go long.
Oh, wow.
Even Dan on a national level, yeah, we'll throw some new tires at it because I'm a driver. I've always loved black asphalt.
Drivers want tires.
Right? Yeah, so that's me. But you can get a lot of races, a lot of laps out of them, and it really has become affordable that way.
All right. Once again, we have Miss Sarah Fisher in the studio with us. When we come back, maybe we'll pick up the pace a little bit from the go-kart action. She's pretty solid behind the wheel of a midget in a sprint car as well.
Hey, kid, you did a great job. You can drive whatever you want to drive. And then walked off and going, oh, God, that's pretty cool.
You're looking at IndyCar's most popular driver for the years 2001, 2, and 3. That is Miss Sarah Fisher. Great to have her inside of the studio with us here at the Skinny. Having a good time getting caught up and finding out how things started off for you, and obviously buried into the IndyCar or into the to the karting industry as it were now, owning a track, your son being young and driving, starting off his young career. But as you moved up out of go-karts, eventually it was up into the midgets, it was into sprint cars. Talk to me about those days and how those opportunities came about, and you had some real success there.
Well, my family that's what they did. They loved winged outlaw sprint cars on dirt. My Uncle Charlie still builds engines for a bunch of guys, mainly 360 guys, but a couple 410s there. And that my dad raced, my Uncle George raced them, and that's just the series, the type of cars that we went for. And so when we were done with go-karts, here comes the winged outlaw sprint car, and I started in a 360 for about 10 races, and got the hang of it, and just I loved it. Those cars are so much fun to drive. And so that right there at I think like 14, 15, I think we jumped to a 410, and I just love them. You just sit in them and they just feel awesome, So even when my late Uncle George was working with Dale Blaney, I'd hop over to Ohio just to push start the car and sit in it. Granted, I'd have to stand up because Dale, Mr. Lakers player, he's 7 foot tall or some crazy thing. But yeah, just that was probably the most fun times, that I had that was kind of more at a professional level, I guess. And I didn't spend much time in midgets. Everybody thinks that I raced midgets on dirt and did all these, and I only spent 1 year in a midget on pavement, and that was it. And that was when I was 18 years old. So my background is mainly the wing sprint cars on dirt, believe it or not.
So, whatever happened to the Barbie dolls and the pink dress and the purse and the bike with the bells and the tassels? Did you sail right by all that? You just opted right for the race car?
I loved working on things. My dad's a mechanical engineer, graduate of Ohio State. My mom is an educator. She's a teacher from Ohio State. And so I loved understanding how things worked. I can say the running order of a block Chevy quicker than my social security number. You know, like I really
Should have had you on the movie My Cousin Vinny. You would have been.
yeah, you know, it's just something I grew up around, and I really enjoyed understanding why something would work and how to make it better, and then how that made the car faster so that I didn't have to work as hard, I guess, you know. So
So
it
you were
just
just drawn to it right away then.
I loved everything about it. I loved, you know, knowing when my dad would build engines, just, you know, what went into that and how to do that and why that worked. And it was science and math. And I could see directly how that influenced the cars I was driving and how it made it better. And so I was game to learn that and try to do the best I could with the knowledge I could bring back from the racetrack.
So you obviously have that passion for a winged sprint car, and I read that you had a number of starts with the All Star Circuit of Champions as well, and Outlaws.
Hmm.
I loved first time I ever saw the All Stars was up in Michigan. I was actually up there to do a drag race, and I was looking at something, and I'd heard that they were running winged sprint cars in Michigan. It wasn't too far away from me, and it was the All Stars. And I mean, to this day, every time you go watch them, there's just no replacement.
It's
There's
incredible.
nothing else like 'em.
It's kind of like an IndyCar, right? You see how fast they are and how much they move and just, you know, what they do when you're up close it's incredible. They're such a fantastic machine. And sprint cars are the same way. When you see them in person, it's like, wow, I didn't know that could do that. And I think it's really hard to capture that on TV, no matter what angle, what type of camera, what technology you have. It's just, they're incredible pieces of machinery, and learning how to operate them and work on them and make them better made me better as a person.
Do you remember how many starts?
No.
How many wins? I mean, what
I
was
think,
that? Maybe a better question would be the time frame of your career. How many years were you competing in a sprint car?
I think 4 years in a sprint car, 1 year in a USAC Neymar's pavement midget. So not a lot of time. I mean, my first IndyCar was when I was 18 years old at Texas Motor Speedway, and it just kind of blossomed from there. I went into, you know, Derek Walker signed me for the next year and was incredibly lucky. So my first job out of high school, I wasn't flipping burgers. I was doing a dream job, being so young. So I didn't spend as much time as a lot of people do in some of the lower ranks.
Well, as you came through karting and you got into the sprint car deal, that was every summer, like
Oh
almost
yeah.
every weekend. I mean, that
Every
was your
summer.
life when you were not in school.
Even over the winter time, we'd run down to Florida. You know, it was a small mom and pop type team. We didn't have the great big tractor trailer, you know, semis. We we even had to take the top wing off for the longest time until Warren Johnson from United Express Line saw me and my dad taking the top wing off. He's like, "Why are you doing that?" We're like, "Well, I got to load it into this little trailer." He's like, "Let me give you a trailer. Come on, this
Oh,
is
that's cool.
ridiculous."
That's great.
So we just, you know, we were lucky to have the opportunities that we had. I ran the Knoxville Nationals a couple years and didn't fare so well because, you know, even though my uncle's an accredited engine builder, we had a couple of them blow up out there pretty big. And, you know, I'm sad and upset. And Doug Wolfgang comes over and knocks on the window when we're all loaded up. And he says, "Hey, kid, you did a great job. You can drive whatever you want to drive." And then walked off. I'm going, "Oh, God, that's pretty cool."
IndyCar, if you will. You know,
There's
I mean,
no fear into turn one at Indy when you've run wide open at Winchester. Let me tell you that.
Welcome back to the Fatheads Eyewear Studio. We're here in Indianapolis, Indiana. Miss Sarah Fisher has joined us here in the studio, finding out how her career got started and her family involvement in the sport. And she touched on it briefly about driving for Walker and getting going when she was 18 years old in an Indy car. But there was a step before that opened up a door with the Pelfrey team. So you talked about running on asphalt, the midget on asphalt for a year, a lot of wing sprint car on the dirt, but you got to win at Winchester. Last time I checked, that one's asphalt, pretty high banked. What were you driving whenever you got your win at Winchester? Because you win any sort of win at Winchester, and that one goes on the mantle.
Well, I think that's just a credit to the wing sprint car days because, you know, you put a kid in, and back then being a kid, I feared nothing, right? So now I'd be like, ah, but then going from a big V8, I think they were only like 180 or not, they were only like 850 horsepower back then. They're not these 1,000 horsepower beasts that they are today.
Hey, Michael, only 850.
Yeah. But you take half of that away, right?
Yeah.
And you put it in a car that weighs the exact same or very close to, because back then, sprint cars could just weigh anything. And you put that kid in a midget, and it's just wide open all the time. What traction? Nothing spinning, wheels aren't spinning. I'm just, find where it's at and run it there. And so that's kind of how I approached it as a kid. And so it that transition was, I hate to say it was easy, but it required less effort, a lot less effort than the rise from a 360 sprint car to a 410 sprint car.
Your brain was up to speed. So that's what it was. It was a 360 sprint car that you won in and at Winchester?
No, that was a USAC midget. Or
Oh, it was a midget.
Neymar
Okay. So I envisioned you winning there in a midget. I wasn't sure what kind of car you were driving.
Now, Kyle, my brother-in-law, he runs the sprint cars, and he's run them there at Winchester, and that scares me, because it's Kyle. I've known him since he was 8 years old, and I'm always just like, okay.
Wing or non-wing?
Non-wing.
So my son ran with Davey, Davey Hamilton, obviously. So we ran King of the Wing series, and we went out there and ran the wing cars out there.
No way.
Yeah,
no way.
And it's crazy because I'm sure you're familiar with this, but the high bank and the wing there, your vision, you can't see anything but right here. And I think it was Aaron Pierce had a flat tire, so he was up high. My son, Robert, and DJ, Davey Hamilton's son, DJ, were down on the bottom having a great battle, I want to say, for second and third. And all of a sudden, Pierce just comes right down in front of him. And they had no clue he was even up there because they couldn't see him. And as everybody's just gasping for air, it was one of those slow motion things that's like, no! But everybody made it somehow, some way, and they finished it up. But that racetrack is, oh my God, I get goosebumps thinking about that place. It's so cool.
Yeah, I'm really happy that Charlie's done a great job of keeping it alive and keeping it going, and having the non-wing sprint cars on pavement. That series in itself, the 500 Sprint Car Tour, making a big comeback. I'm proud of that, just being from that type of background, not having driven them, but driving of course, the midgets and the winged dirt cars. I'm just really happy to see that.
Yeah, super cool racing, and what a great platform, foundation for you to come out of and go into IndyCar, if you will.
There's no fear into turn one at Indy when you've run wide open at Winchester. Let me tell you that. Like it's yeah.
That's a pretty cool perspective. I've never heard that before. So how about that? Something different for sure. But that win at Winchester is what opened up the door, correct?
I think just the midget experience in general. We were running around the time when like Jason Leffler was there and running with the big names in the 9 cars, the white 9 cars, and running with them and beating them a lot. I think that's sort of what raised the flag. But more than anything was Tony George's vision of having IndyCar drivers who at the time, the Indy Racing League was all ovals. So his vision was to pick aspiring drivers from these open wheel oval series cars, which I was doing well at the time. So I was just very lucky to fit into his vision. And so team owners were looking kind of towards that type of racing to hire upcoming talent. So I was just incredibly lucky and very fortunate for that. It's all about timing.
Yeah, Steve Lewis and the 9-car team, they were absolutely brutal, no question. So as I read it, so you were there cutting your teeth, having some success, and you get a phone call from the Pelfrey team, and did you drive for them for a couple of years?
No. Oh, no. I only ran for them for 1 race.
Okay.
It's
Gotcha.
a long story, but, we
have time.
God,
I get it. I get the message.
I don't know that I remember all of it, So I do remember, though, we took the car back to our race shop in Ohio, or in towards Columbus and Commercial Point, And I've got pictures of myself and Eddie Boggs, who used to paint all of our stuff, because in sprint cars it's got to be light, so it's one coat, nothing underneath. And so myself and Ed putting under tray up on it, and trying to get it ready for Texas. So I mean, that was a long time ago, but one race, and then Mr. Walker, Derek gave me a call and had to get some lawyers in there, but isn't that normal these days?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I guess.
It's a business.
And it all worked out. But I'm really thankful because Derek, gosh, he kept building race cars for me, because I had never run anything rear engine before. And I'm incredibly grateful to the Unser family, because Al and his dad really taught me about that transition of learning from your seat, driving a sprint car and driving it basically with your ass and your feet, right, to steering a car and learning how to steer it with your hands and your eyes, and because your butt doesn't do anything in those cars. So, well, not anything, but in comparison to a sprint car style. So it took quite a couple cars coming back on a hook.
It took a couple cars, and I was getting
to
close.
learn that technique. So thank you, Derek Walker. I've thanked him many times, but I ultimately learned how to do that.
We're going to take a quick break right here. We'll be right back with more.
Want to get the skinny on other guests in different types of motorsports? Check out our YouTube page and get the skinny. The Skinny is brought to you by American Coach. American Coach. Innovation is our life force. And Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear. Hardcore since '04.
Welcome back to the Skinny. We're getting the Skinny on Miss Sarah Fisher here this week. Great to have her in the studio, local here in the Indianapolis area, and talking about the start of her career so far, and just made our way up into IndyCar. And she mentioned a pretty cool name along the way that ended up being her coach at Derek Walker Racing, and that's Mr. Al Unser. How cool is that to have a four-time Indy 500 guy as your coach, and really an all-around racer? Wasn't much that guy didn't do, from up the mountain to Indy cars. He could do it all.
Well, I was, like I said, I was extremely lucky. It's all about timing. Tony George had the Indy Racing League have coaches on staff. Now it's a thing. You travel with a coach. They are on your team. They're a paid employee. But back then, that really wasn't a thing yet. So, to have Al Sr. and Johnny Rutherford come with the series and help rookies that were coming along, and to have Al Sr. sitting there in turn one at Phoenix and helping me, understand what I was feeling and what that meant. That was just huge. Just someone who I knew had a voice, that what I was feeling at the time wasn't crazy. And the first IndyCar I started out in was a Riley and Scott. So, yes, that was a lot of engineering, but I remember we were testing in Phoenix, and I crashed, and everything I was feeling was just completely backwards, and to the point where I was questioning myself. And Derek brings me into the trailer, and I'm going, "Oh my God, I'm fired. This is it," And he says, "Well, I've got some good news and some bad news. What do you want first?" And I'm like, well, he's kind of joking, so maybe I'm not fired. But I said, well, what's the bad news? And he goes, well, car's on a hook and we're not going to fix it. I was like, okay, well, so then what's the good news? And he said, we have a brand new Delara waiting for you at home. And I was like, oh my God, I love you. It's the best news I've heard ever in my life. So, got into that car, and everything I was feeling and relaying to the Unsers made sense.
Wow.
All the changes that we made did what they were supposed to do. And I'm like, oh, thank God, I'm not an idiot. This is really what's going on. So it was a huge validation, a huge turning point in the early days. And because I'd run Texas with like you said, Dale Pelfrey, and had a Delara there and was driving that, no problem. Everything I felt made sense. Everything that they did made the change it was supposed to make, and all the science and math made sense on all the geometry, everything. And here we go. This is great. It's a lot of fun. So it was a little bit of a setback, but not for long.
Was the feeling coming out of the sprint car on an oval? I know, obviously not the dirt, but the limited asphalt seat time that you had, or maybe even the midget, did was it the same? Was there anything there that was relatable to the IndyCar?
I think car control overall, car control in a sprint car is much more sensitive than you think it is. That big wing on top, and when you go into turn one at Knoxville, you think that they're pitching the cars really hard, but they're really not. It really is a very smooth transition, and you have to be smooth. And when you see them, moving the wheel and trying to articulate the car, that's to get it to a point on the track to get grip. It's not because they're just, jacking the steering wheel around. There's a purpose for that. So I think being smooth and learning that from those types of cars and learning a big car control that moves around a lot, I think the smoothness and that really helped.
So, so you had some success there, right? At Derek Walker, if I'm not mistaken, first female on the podium,
I
and
think so. I don't remember.
well, let's just say this: you were on the podium. That's quite an accomplishment. So, congratulations on that. And give me Al Unser story. What were some of his euphemisms, if you will? I mean, the guy was a wordsmith in his own right.
Oh, it's probably loaded with explicatives. So I don't know that I can repeat that. But, for as much history as he has, he was, man, just an incredible racer who could really relate very simply. It just, there wasn't a whole big explanation for what was going on because he knew what he was doing and he could explain that to someone extremely well within maybe 5 or 6 words, just very short. But to have him seeing that, because, it's one thing to read it off of a computer, but it's another to actually see what the car is doing and to know what the driver is doing inside and to see all of that happening and to be able to say, well, I saw this is what happened, and to explain it that way. Um, that's priceless, right? I think nowadays it's a lot harder to do that. But for sure then that was such a huge help for me.
Yeah, I would think so, especially and all the confidence you can put inside of somebody like that has had the seat time inside of the car. It has to be a piece of comfort for sure. Yeah, incredible. So you're racing with Derek Walker, and you make your way to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the first time. How daunting was that?
Well, my first time around the speedway was in the bus. And, like everyone that goes around the bus and you think, oh my God, turn one is really far. And it looks like a needle point at the end. But so did Winchester. So let's just go get in it. Let's go do it. And I think for my rookie year, I competed against Juan Montoya for the rookie of the year, which I think was incredibly favored because he was like a 2 or 3 time kart champion. Right. And I'll never forget the day I walk out to pit lane and he's getting in the car for his first run and he goes wide open 3rd time by. I'm going, oh geez, this is bad.
Didn't he spend some time in that, what do they call it, that F1 thing?
Didn't he win that year too?
Shit.
Jesus. Good Lord. But
yeah, rookie to rookie, that's apples to apples.
yeah, no, I don't think so. Catherine broke that last year, but I love Catherine. She's awesome, and there couldn't be a better person to do that. I was the fastest without a turbo.
Nice wide shot here of the Fatheads Eyewear studio. You're watching The Skinny. Sarah Fisher has joined us here in the studio. I'm Ken Stout, Mr. Michael Young over there running the awards. Running the awards. You want to talk about an award? I got a little
running the board.
Running a board,
I'm running.
Trying to earn an award.
There you go.
Speaking of awards, 2009 was a pretty special year for you. Talk to us about it. The Indy 500 award, the Scott Brayton Trophy.
That was just incredible. My family, John O'Gara and my husband Andy O'Gara, Johnny O was on Scotty's car, so that just. Man, that meant a lot to more than me. It meant a lot to the O'Gara family, and that's the only trophy in my living room. Wow. So to have that type of, I guess, recognition in the series of having the same mannerisms of Scotty Brayton, that was a huge honor.
Yeah, that's really special. Those things stick with you, and it's cool to have your peers give you something like that.
Yeah, only a guy like TK. Right, and Dixie, some of my favorites, really knew what that was about. And, some of the other kids are on their phones and, not really understanding, I guess, what that meant. And even myself, I didn't know Scott. I wasn't around yet. And so, but knowing the history and having heard a lot of stories about him from the O'Gara family, I mean, that made my whole Indy 500. I don't even know where I finished. It was just such a cool moment.
Talking about your finishes at Indy 500, 2001, 2008,
None of them
both
were great.
both pretty rough years. So these 2 years particularly were a little more difficult. But
I only did it 9 times, but I made all 9 of them.
rumor
Let's just
has
say
it that's more starts than any other female. I don't know if that's still true or not, but
it is as of right now. And I was the fastest one, and Catherine broke that last year. But I love Catherine; she's awesome, and there couldn't be a better person to do that. I was the fastest without a turbo. I'll put that in there. But
still track record at Kentucky, you can throw that at her.
yeah, no,
This is
it's
221 miles an hour or something. I mean,
yeah,
you guys are
that was
ripping.
great. And one lap too, I got to make the choice myself. That was really cool. But Kentucky's like one of those short tracks that there's a couple little kind of hidden gems inside the track that if you get to know the knack of it, you can really manipulate the car to
I
get to go
love
where you
that
want.
track. I think I
It's
did an
great.
ASA race down there, and I love that track. I
It's a
mean,
great track.
visually from the grandstands, it was just a great place to watch a race.
Yep, fastest there. First win as a car owner. And thanks to Dollar General, because they gave me the opportunity to get out of the car to start a family, or to try to start a family. I wasn't able to start the family until 3 weeks before Kentucky. And if Ed was in my car at Indy, I'd have had some trouble with that without being pregnant. But thank God, God works his wonderful ways that we didn't have to cross that bridge. But they gave me the opportunity to show what our team was capable of, with someone else in the seat, and myself as a team owner, how that would work, with all of their plans too. So it was an incredible year. Nathan O'Rourke was our engineer, and getting to know all those guys, and bringing on Jeremy Millis, and having him there, just all the guys that were part of that effort, are all still really great friends, and it was tremendous. Car that he crashed at Texas, that was one of my cars, not Ed's. Okay, I'm not gonna get. I'll where's the tequila?
The Skinny is brought to you by Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04. And American Coach, innovation is our life force.
Welcome back to the Skinny. We have Sarah Fisher once again inside of the studio here, winding this one up. Just one more segment to go. We haven't even really touched on her team ownership, which so successful in that as well. I mean, and great relationships that will last a lifetime. As you were talking about some of the players that were on the team, but we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the opportunity provided for a young Joseph Newgarden and coming into the series, and now a 2-time champ. But how did that happen? How did all of that come about?
Well, 2 words: Wink Hartman. That's 100% what happened. We were looking for a driver to fill the seat come 2012. Wink and Andy had talked about, we have to buy new cars. There's going to be a whole new reset. And Wink said, well, would you consider taking on a partner? We're like, sure. We didn't really know. We'd built a team for Andy and I to go to Indy, and for me to run Indy for, us. So this was a scale that was beyond where we'd ever been. And Wink Hartman said, we need to have a rookie that we commit 3 years to. We're going to commit 3 years so that they learn, because you can't learn everything in 1 year. You learn how to race them. You learn how to wreck. You learn how to win. That's just the 3-year scale. It is what it is. And Mr. Hartman was willing to make that type of a commitment. So we looked at all the different kids that were kind of coming along, and Joseph had just won the Indy Lights championship and had some money from that. So we weren't 100% sponsorship funded for the first time in 5 years. So we were like, okay, well, that might make sense. We waited against a couple other opportunities, and Wink said, let's interview him at Vegas. So we went out to Vegas, and Thomas Schechter and Ed Carpenter were driving for us out there. Well, none of us will ever forget that weekend. But that was the weekend that we interviewed Joseph. And Wink, myself, Andy, Wink's wife, Libba, we all just fell in love with him. We thought this would be great. So Wink signed him to a 3-year agreement to, just commit to him no matter what. And granted, through those 3 years, there were several times that Wink wanted to fire him, several times that Joseph wanted to quit. Not really, but and marrying those two together and trying to help be the communicator. I guess I was the family communicator between Joey, the dad, and anyways, took a couple years off my life, but that's all right. Um, and then, the one thing that we never did well at for him as a developing driver was we never gave him a teammate. So when Ed won for us, and, at the time, we were really great friends, good friends now. We're getting back there. But at the time, Ed and Wink had talked about merging our teams together, so that it would provide Joseph a teammate, and it would provide him and, his whatever at the time, provide him a teammate. So that was formed, lots of talks. It wasn't the easiest merger ever, but, name a merger that is easy, and
Right.
and we'll celebrate. But that was the birth of CFH Racing, the 1-year team. And that was the year that Joseph won in Barber and Joseph won in Toronto. And it was under that CFH banner, but it was essentially our team and Ed's team working together. And on paper, it was CFH Racing. So our engineers, and as far as going back and talking about what sponsorships that I could sell, I could sell for Joseph. I could only sell there were just so many parameters, and it made it such a tough year because of that, all of the different parameters. And us as a team, we needed a teammate for information. We were doing good otherwise. Um, so that makes it rough. And at the end of that year, my Andy and I, frankly, we'd had enough. The IndyCar series, as it sits with your own team, takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of commitment, especially if you're funded by sponsors and partners, and you don't do it out of your pocket. So that made that year incredibly hard, and we were looking for an exit strategy, I'll be completely honest. And Wink was done because Wink fed in more money than what it took to have raced just one car because of the parameters around sponsorship, and I don't like that for Wink, but it is what it is. And so Wink was done. So at the end of the year, we have all of our equipment. Wink owns the race shop. And so Wink is a gentleman by far, and leases the equipment to Ed for $1. Makes the race shop lease to Ed is what market rate is now. And that was, the next year Joseph drove under Ed's umbrella with our equipment. The car that he crashed at Texas, that was one of my cars, not Ed's. Okay, I'm not gonna get. I'll. Where's the tequila? This is where I get angry, but it'll be all right. And I think just the background of how that seat was available for him to drive, and how that happened, and the graciousness of Wink Hartman to make that an opportunity, I think sometimes that isn't talked about a lot. And I'm very sad for Wink Hartman because of that, because if it wasn't for him, Andy and I certainly wouldn't be here. And yeah, so that was a bummer. And it's sad that it kind of ended that way. Since then, Ed and Heather and Andy and I have talked a lot, and we've gotten to be back to closer to where we were as friends and family, and seeing our kids grow up, and as we mature and get older, we put a lot of that behind us. But that was rough, man, I'll tell you. So getting back to karting and grassroots and having fun again, and being a mom, and watching my 12-year-old get up on a wakeboard for the first time this last weekend, Zoe, just I really do. When I say I enjoy that, I really do enjoy that.
Awesome stuff. Is that it, Michael? Are we done?
That's it.
It's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Could
Once
take
again,
longer.
sales spike quickly.
Yeah.
I have
Awesome
a lot of
stuff.
stories. Sorry.
Thanks.
All those different dimensions, the MacGyver of every perspective.
We love it. We love it. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you making the time to get over here and do it. And best of luck moving forward.
Thank you.
Both the wakeboard boat and karting.
I don't know.
And the tequila.
Oh, good Lord. That's how you get through a SCUSA event. Amanda Cox taught me that.
There you go. Oh, great family. Once again, hope you had a great show here. Hope you enjoyed listening to The Skinny here on Miss Sarah Fisher. We'll see you next week.